Well, thank you both. We'll have one round and 7 minutes, but I'll, as always, try to be a little bit liberal with the time because it's a very important topic. So let's just get right into it. Mr. Dorsey, you can go first, and Mr. Zuckerberg. When you heard Senator Blumenthal's opening statement and mine, what did you get from it?
Well, I think you pointed out that we are facing something that feels impossible. We are required to help increase the health of the public conversation, while at the same time ensuring that as many people as possible can participate. And in order to do so, we need to make policies so that people feel safe and they feel free to express themselves, to minimize threats of abuse, of harassment, of misleading information, of organized campaigns to artificially amplify or influence a particular conversation. And that policy creation, that enforcement is challenging, but also it is more or less opaque to the public. And that's where I think we have a gap. We have transparency around our policies. We do not have transparency around how we operate content moderation, the rationale behind it, the reasoning. And as we look forward, we have more and more of our decisions, of our operations, moving to algorithms, which have a difficult time explaining why they make decisions, bringing transparency around those decisions. And that is why we believe that we should have more choice in how these algorithms are applied to our content, whether we use them at all, so we can turn them on or off, and have clarity around the outcomes that they are projecting and how they affect our experience.
Thank you. Mr. Zuckerberg, very quickly, please. What did you hear?
Senator, I heard that there are issues around content moderation as well as other areas. And frankly, I'm optimistic from the statements that we may be able to move forward and hopefully update some of the rules for the internet around these areas. I've been encouraging and hoping that we would do this for a couple of years. And from your opening statements, it sounds like there may be now enough common ground on views that real progress can be made here.
So from my point of view, the question for us is, when it comes time to flag content as being reliable or not reliable, do either one of you believe that the government should do that? Is that a solution where the government sets a regulatory scheme that talks about what should be up and what should be down?
I don't believe so. I think that would be very challenging.
Okay. Do you agree with that, Mr. Zuckerberg?
Senator, for certain types of illegal content, I think it may be appropriate for there to be clear rules around that. But outside of clear harms, including things like child exploitation in areas like that, terrorism, I would agree with your sentiment that that's not something that government should be deciding on a piece of content by piece of content basis.
So if we take the government out of the picture, at least in non-criminal areas, should we leave it up to the industry to come up with best business practices in terms of how to moderate content?
I think that's best. I think we need to align around the problem that we're trying to solve. And there are many solutions to solving those problems, but I think we also have to focus our efforts on what is going to have the greatest impact. And we believe that the greatest impact is going to be found in how we deal with algorithms, how we use those algorithms, because they are responsible for showing us what we see or what we don't see. And there needs to be more choice in their use.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Zuckerberg?
Senator, I think that that there is a role for regulation in the process, even if not defining on a piece of content by piece of content basis. And one of the areas that I've advocated for is regulation around transparency that goes beyond just just about what the policies are and what the process is, but also goes towards results. And as an example of this, every quarter, Facebook releases a community standards enforcement report. It's basically a transparency report that breaks down each category of potentially harmful content that we track, ranging from terrorism to child exploitation content to incitement of violence to pornography to intellectual property violations.
Yes, if I may, I don't mean to interrupt, but who sets those community standards? How are they set by the company?
Senator, we have a policy team that consults with a number of different stakeholders and outside groups to make sure that we're getting feedback from broad swaths of our community covering all of the concerns.
Is that publicly known?
Senator, I believe so. And our head of content policy has testified publicly multiple times.
Okay. So when it comes to fact checking, would you give us a list of the people you use to fact check?
Senator, yes. We work with a number of independent organizations that are accredited by the Poynter Institute, and they include Reuters, the Associated Press, Agence France Presse United States, USA Today, factcheck.org, Science Feedback, PolitiFact, Check Your Fact, Lead Stories, and The Dispatch in the United States.
Okay, I think it's important for the public to know who sets community standards, how they're set, who does the fact checking, who you rely upon to do that. I think that would go a long way to people having a better understanding of the decisions you make. Mr. Zuckerberg, do you believe your product can be addictive?
Senator, we certainly do not design the product in that way. We design the product to be as useful and meaningful as possible.
That's not my question. My question is that there seems to be an ample body of growing medical evidence that social media sites have an addictive nature to them. Do you agree with that?
Senator, I don't think the research has been conclusive, but it is an area that we care about and study. We certainly do not want our products to be addictive. We want people to use them because they are meaningful. And we take steps to make sure that this is the case. So, for example, we don't give the team that's running Newsfeed a goal around how much time people spend on our products, which goes counter to a lot of the memes and misinformation out there around how we operate. But my goal is to help people connect and find content and interactions that are going to be meaningful to them on our service. And our view is that if that's what we deliver over the long term and people find the services useful, then they'll use them more. But I don't think that companies should be optimizing to just encourage people to spend as much time as possible on them.
Well, time's about up. Have you seen the movie Social Dilemma?
Senator, I'm familiar with it.
Okay, have you seen it, Mr. Dorsey?
No, I have not.
I would encourage both of you to see it. So here's what I think we're going to do on the committee over time, I hope, is to ask the question more directly, are these social media sites addictive? Do they have a public health component that needs to be addressed? For years, we thought tobacco was a great thing. We found out tobacco was not such a great thing. The medical science around these websites are becoming very concerning to me, particularly among children, and that you can manipulate how many times you watch. And you can set these media sites up so that people will constantly interact. So to both of you, I appreciate coming before the committee. We've got a long way to go. I don't think the government needs to regulate what we think or what we say, but we've got to up our game here. And I'll end with this last question. Do both of you support change to 230, reform of Section 230?
Senator, I do.
Mr. Dorsey?
Yes.
Thank you. Senator Blumenthal?